Marty. If you're watching this online later, we hope that you enjoy the information and find it useful. However, archived webinars may not be used towards COVA certification. There are live captions today. You should be able to control those through the box that says closed captioning on the bottom of your screen. And with that, we hope that you enjoy the presentation, and we'll turn it back to Marty and Shamel. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. So welcome to our presentation today, and we've titled it Apples and Oranges. And so we're going to go over some of the best practices for online training and presentations today. So as we get started, we want to give you some guidelines as we start our presentation. So we do ask that you actively participate and engage with us today so that we can make our time worthwhile. We do ask if you can also, close any emails or any other distractions if possible, just so that you can definitely, be engaged with us and focus on the materials, because we're hoping that as we navigate, our virtual world where we're all having to interact with each other, that we're able to give you some tips to be even more effective in that realm. And then also, again, be prepared to contribute and ask questions. And then if you need any type of technical assistance, you can reach out to Kirsten in the chat box and she will be available to assist you. If you're all in, please give us a thumbs up. If you look on your Zoom toolbar, you'll see some reaction keys. And if you can just give us a thumbs up, okay, I see them. You guys have found it. Thank you. I'm enjoying that feedback already. So we'll be asking you to do that throughout our time together. So just to give you some introductions of ourselves, my name is Shamel Hill, and I'm an independent consultant with the Office of Victims of Crime and Training and Technical Assistance Center. I'm joining you today from St. Louis, Missouri, where I serve in the capacity of Director of Training with some of the CASA programs in the area, and CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates. And I work with different programs within the St. Louis metropolitan area, and I also consult with other programs in other states. My background is in human resource management, and I focus or have an emphasis on curriculum development and design. And I also work in the field of social work, and I have extensive experience working with victims, individuals who have been victimized. And so I'm going to turn it over to Marty, who will also be presenting with me today.
Thanks, Shamel, and hi, everybody. I'm Marty Covener, joining you from kind of cloudy and cold Denver today. I am a COVA fan, and I started my career in victim advocacy in Colorado a long, long time ago, as you can see by the gray hair. I was a victim advocate in Boulder County in the DA's office, and I ran the State Sexual Assault Coalition here in Colorado for a while. And I have been at ICF now for 10 years, and ICF holds the contract for OVC TTAC, and that's how Shamel and I are coming to you. I worked in a variety of human service related projects and contracts at ICF, and one of them was OVC TTAC, the OVC Training and Technical Assistance Center. So this is kind of an alumni sort of appearance for me, and I'm really excited that I was asked to do this presentation with Shamel. I think we're going to have a lot of fun today. My role, I think the reason I was asked is my role now is that I actually work in corporate learning. And our company has over 7,000 employees around the globe. So virtual learning has been kind of the state of reality for us for a long, long time. And so we've had a chance to perfect some things before we all found ourselves in this recent situation where we have to be virtual. So that's me, and really looking forward to this. And I'm going to key us up right now for the video that will introduce you all to OVC TTAC and the great work that they're doing there.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and play the video.
The Office for Victims of Crime Training and Technical Assistance Center, or OVC TTAC, provides training and technical assistance to victim service providers and allied professionals on behalf of OVC. We collaborate with victim service organizations, subject matter experts, and federal and state agencies to build the capacity of individuals and organizations who support victims of crime across the country. Our mission is to provide training and technical assistance services that support professional development, enhance services to the community, and enable organizations to reach underserved victims of crime. We conduct needs assessments on service organizations, identify resources to meet those needs, and monitor and evaluate the efficacy of our training and technical assistance activities over time. Through a simple application process, we offer an array of standardized face-to-face trainings on topics relevant to victim service providers and allied professionals, customized technical assistance to address specific capacity building and professional development needs, and support of conference plenary or victim impact presenters. OVC-TTAC provides other professional development opportunities for victim service providers who want to stay up to date on the latest trends in the field. We offer free online and virtual trainings, webinars, as well as training tools and resources that are designed to educate service providers on topics focused on improving services to victims of crime. We also offer financial assistance to attend an approved training or conference through the Professional Development Scholarship Program. To learn more about OVC, go to www.ovc.gov or go to OVC-TTAC's website at www.ovcttac.gov to learn more about the training and technical assistance services we provide.
All right. Well, thank you for taking time to hear the information from OVC-TTAC, and I'm happy that they were able to bring us together to spend some time with you. So during our time together, we're going to discuss some different strategies on how to be effective as a virtual facilitator. And so as a facilitator, it definitely allows you to deepen your conversations and strengthen your engagement with one another. And so for some of us, we've had to fundamentally change our practices from what we were doing, in a physical room to now doing it virtually. And so that's why we're here. We want to figure out how to be able to be more effective on a virtual platform. So some of you had the opportunity to attend the COVA training recently, a couple of months ago, with facilitator Patty Cantrell. And so I know not all of you were in attendance of that, but if you did attend that training, we want to know what are some additional skills that you would like to build upon as a virtual presenter? And then if you did not attend that training, but you still want to build up your skills as a virtual facilitator, we also want to know what are some of those skills that you hope to build upon. So if you can put that in the chat box, that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, well, I'm really happy to see, Shamal, that everyone so far is saying engagement, because that's what we're here to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah, interactive and maintaining activity in groups, marketing, good. Lots of engagement. Icebreakers and polls are ways to keep the audience's attention. Again, engagement. Yeah, how to read the room, that's a great one. Reading the virtual room. Confidence in speaking. How to create polls. I don't know that we're going to talk about how to create polls today, but we're going to use a lot of them so you can see ways that we actually do them. And I'll tell you, most of the platforms that you'll use have really good tutorials on how to create polls. Experiential activities that we can use online, breakout rooms, incorporating video. Got you on those. Ensuring accessibility.
I saw how to spend, and I saw how to spend 7+ hours on Zoom. I can almost relate to that. I do have to do a curriculum that's about 3.5, 4 hours. So some of the techniques that we'll be going over today will definitely help you through that process.
Setting expectations and reading the room while seeing slides and notes. Spoiler, I have my notes printed in front of me, always do it. It's part of a fail-safe, and it's part of just being able to, focus my energy where it needs to be focused, which is right now on the chat.
Exactly.
Cool.
Okay.
I think we've got most of those things covered.
Yeah, I think we're going to be right on track. So we're going to go over to our agenda and let you all see what we're going to be covering today.
Great, so I am going to share my screen here for a minute. Which is easier said than done. So one of the tricks that we want to talk with you all about today is using a tool called Mentimeter or Menti. So I'd like you to grab your cell phone and go to menti.com and enter in this code that you see at the top of the screen. Someone give me a thumbs up. Let me know you can see the screen. I was having a little bit of a hard time with my screen share.
I'm going to stop sharing mine. I'm not seeing yours yet. There we go.
You guys have the screen? Okay. So grab your cell phone, go to menti.com, enter the code that you see at the top here that begins with 61. And I want you to join me there and answer this question about the ideas that we have on our topics, on our agenda, the topics that we have on our agenda for today. So are you interested about what your audiences are dealing with, what we're all dealing with as facilitators, how to prep? I know you're interested in engagement because we already heard that. Virtual adult learning, how that's different in a virtual environment, or trauma-informed delivery. Okay, see people voting. So Menti is really cool. There are a lot of different ways that you can set up these polls, and we'll show you one of the other ones later today. This is one of my favorite ones because it sort of gives you this heat map of where the interest is in your room, right? So we're seeing kind of a pretty split tie for what we're all dealing with as facilitators. For example, our internet connection being unstable, there you go. And virtual trauma-informed delivery, which Shmel's going to talk a lot about. So I'm going to give the screen back to Shmel now.
And I saw a question in the chat box inquiring if Menti is free to use. So to answer your question, you can use it for free, but there's limited capability, but you also can subscribe, and there's different packages that you can subscribe to, and it gives you different features. So that is an option for you as well.
And I see that Memory was saying she missed the code. So we're going to move on from this one. We'll try this again in a little bit. We will today be using the paid version of Menti that OVC TAC uses, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. It's worth the money. So let's think about this. We have, a little bit more than half of you really interested in what we're all dealing with as virtual facilitators. So we'd like to show you a quick video really quick, and let's just think about the worst thing that can happen. So this morning I had a presentation before this, and I spilled my coffee all over my desk. That was the worst thing that could happen. There was coffee like running down my wall and on all my papers because I'm a big Post-it note fan. So let's watch this quick video so we can see what else could go wrong.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for being here on time. Paul? Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hey, guys.
Hey, Tyler.
Sorry I'm late. Having a hard time connecting.
1 second. Paul's having a sound issue.
I can't hear you. Try adjusting your output settings. Can you
It's
hear
the-
me? It's the gear icon.
Tyler, are you on hotel Wi-Fi?
Yeah, why?
Never mind, I got it. I just had to change a few settings.
Great. Maybe we
maybe
can get started then. Oh, great.
I think your mic is picking up your speakers.
My mic?
Do you have headphones?
You want me to put them on?
No, I want you to smell them. No, I want you to put them on. Hey, Beth.
Hey everyone. Sorry I'm late. I had to download a new version of the platform.
You should plan extra time for the updates. There's pretty much one every time.
Sounds like someone just joined.
Hey guys, it's John. I had to call in. I'm stuck in traffic. Have I missed anything yet?
No, it would have been nice for you to join the rest of us, but we'll see you when you get home. All right, while everyone is here, finally, Tyler, do you have that financial report?
Well, it's been the last few weeks updating our books, and I got some great news for you. Schedule from this point last year. We had a great Q1.
We lost Tyler, I think.
Am I frozen?
Hey, Trip, I think we lost Tyler.
Yeah, I know, we lost Tyler.
Hey guys, it sounded like Tyler was cutting out.
We know, John. All right, while we wait on Tyler, why don't we go over all of the reports from Beth, are you with us?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, everyone, I know some of you have to leave soon, but I just wanted to go over a couple of the queries before. Okay, excuse me. My wife's out of town this week. I'm so sorry. Okay, you just spilt grape juice on the carpet. Daddy is in a meeting. Tyler, can you go over the numbers one more time, please?
I thought Beth had an adjustment. Hey, Beth.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, that's my iTunes.
Hey guys, hang on. I'm gonna join in. Hey, what platform are you guys on? Skype? FaceTime?
It's in the invite.
Oh, never mind. I see it. It's right there in the invite.
Okay, now I can see everybody. Let's reschedule and let's just do a regular old conference call, okay? Paul, can you have David send out the 9-digit passcode? I heard you.
Yeah, he's been here the whole time.
All right, everybody. I'll see you later. Like a lot of video conference calls, this one sucked, but it wouldn't have had we been using Zoom.
Okay, let's
Zoom will
pause it
host
there.
over 4 billion meeting minutes over the next.
There you go. We had to show you the tidy whities because that's happening and work from home and being virtual. So give me a thumbs up if video. Anybody having that experience? I can, and just so you know, while we were watching that video, I lost my connection and I had to leave and come back into the meeting. And you saw my screen share that I have an unstable connection. So I need to put everyone on alert that I may be popping in and out today. So apologies about that. But you know, we're all dealing with a lot of stress right now, working from home. I've always worked from home and it's stressful for me right now too. So lots of added features in our interactions. We've got kids and pets and people walking behind us in their underwear sometimes, all distractions that we have to deal with. So we want to talk a little bit about just where we are and kind of the state of virtual training, both what our audiences are dealing with and what we're dealing with as we're doing this work. So on the next slide, I want to have you take a look at something that's one of my favorite kind of thought pieces right now. And it was created by Deloitte actually, and it's called the Modern Learner. And there are a few different variations of this out there. Shamel is going to post a link in the chat. We have the full version of this so that you can see it. It's a little bit hard to see on the screen here, I know, but I want to have you just take a minute to kind of absorb this slide. What I really take out of this, what I see, and what I've experienced in my work doing training and facilitation and meetings and things like that online is that we are all these days very, we're remote, and right now we're forced to be remote, but I think that's a trend in workforce in general. We're very distracted, right? So we're unlocking our cell phones 9 times an hour, and that was a few years ago, so I would guess that that number is even going up. We're very overwhelmed, so there's so much information coming at us all the time that we're constantly trying to sift through information. Many of us are also trying to sift through new technologies, and a new added stress in our age is the stress of always being behind. and always trying to adopt new technologies and having a hard time just getting our work done because we're so busy trying to figure out what that last change was that Gmail rolled out or Outlook rolled out, and how do we use it, and where did all my stuff go? So really overwhelmed and overloaded. One of the big takeaways from this study by Deloitte is that the average worker has 24 minutes in a week to devote to learning or training. So we have very little time to grab people and, you know, kind of take them with us on this journey to teach them the very important issues that we need to impart to them. So one of the things that I like to do a lot in virtual presentations is to animate slides. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are kind of PowerPoint haters. I actually think PowerPoint is a great tool. It's just that we tend to not use it very well. In this kind of a virtual delivery, it's helpful for me to have some of the slides annotated. So Shamel's going to do that for me right now, just to make the point here that virtual learning, because of all these things we see on the left, has to be social. We all need ways to connect right now. Shamel, can you hit click for me one more time so we get that right panel up? There you go. Thanks. So we all need ways to connect with each other as human beings and kind of let off some stress. So any way that we can get people connecting with each other right now is helpful. We need to engage people. You're all here for that, right? We need to make sure that with us all sitting in front of computers all day long, it is really hard to pay attention. We need to design our learning experiences with that learner experience in mind. So are they tech savvy? Do they have good access? Will they participate? Will they use video? Will they be shy about speaking up? Do we have any sort of loudest voices in the room that might make it hard for certain people to speak up, and how can we mitigate that? So really thinking thoughtfully about what the experience is going to be, keeping it as simple as possible. Because we're talking about virtual engagement today, we're going to throw every tool at you that we can think of, every engagement trick, just to demonstrate them. But I would never say just, you know, use tricks for the sake of using tricks. You keep it as simple as you can. And then also make it really personalized. So really think about what your learners are going through. And Chanel's going to talk about that a bunch as we get into this. So that's kind of what our audiences are dealing with. So let's think now, or look now, at what we're dealing with. So this is an training facilitation gurus. Her name is Cindy Huggett, and she does a survey every year on the state of virtual training. This is 2019. Shamel just put this file in the chat so you can download this as well. And I would say if you have a training that you're getting ready to do, just go to cindyhuggett.com. She is an amazing resource sharer, and she has a ton of great stuff, a lot of which I'm going to refer to today. So the 2020 survey will be coming soon, the data rather. These stats are all pre-COVID. So if you look up in the upper left-hand corner, that 10% of training being delivered of us, 21 hours, or the average of us, it takes us 21 hours to create 1 hour of online training. So if this is hard and you're exhausted and you're wondering why this is taking so long, you're not alone. I think there's some things we can do to kind of shortcut that a little bit, but it does really take a long time to convert, especially if you've got something that is a delivery in person and you have to switch that over. I am getting a message that I'm going in and out. So
you are
Shamel,
frozen just a little bit.
Can I hand this over to you? And I'm going to I'm going to leave and come back in and see if that will help.
Okay. So yeah,
Okay, be right back.
I want to just address some of the questions in the chat box. I saw that a couple of participants indicated, you know, they're nervous about, you know, going in and out and, you know, dealing with internet connections issues. And as I'll share as a facilitator, I've probably experienced most of the snafus that you can on live training. And so what I would suggest is, you know, with your internet connection, if you're able to, and sometimes it's just not always going to be in our control, but what I do and what I'm actually doing now is I have my Wi-Fi at home, but I also have a hotspot that I use. So it's not even connected to my internet service. It's just a personal hotspot. And I know not everyone will have connection to or have access to that, but sometimes even just using a different source of internet or a backup source of internet. So usually when I do presentations, I try to use my hotspot versus my regular Wi-Fi through my provider, because I know everyone's using that now that most people are working virtually. So maybe even trying to use some backup resources that could also help. And I'll turn it back over to you, Marty.
Hi, everybody, I'm back. So let's do a quick audio test. Does that sound better?
You sound good to me.
Okay, so I heard us talking about bandwidth and connectivity. So the thing that I always do is I hardwire directly into my modem. So I think what was just happening is that my headset's going bad. I generally try and use a headset because I have better sound with a headset, and I found that in a recording of a session, there's a lot of latency when I don't use a headset. But that was the thing, that was my first test to log back in and then to try and get rid of it. So there's a lot of, you know, I saw somebody in the chat say, this is what I worry about. Believe me, it's what I worry about too. And actually, you're probably thinking that we staged this, but we didn't. I mean, this is what happened. It's just reality. And so you just have to know what you're gonna do to deal with these situations. You have to be able to hand off to your co-facilitator. I'd say don't ever do it without a co-facilitator. I mean, that's like the number one, right? So that these kinds of things that happen as we're going are things that we can help manage. So back to the slide. I want to direct your attention to the bottom and the top challenges of virtual training that we all share with Cindy when she does this survey. So folks being unprepared, not knowing how to log in. I think that was something that happened today a little bit. So all the different platforms have different ways of registering and then accessing the meeting, or sometimes you just hit a link and come into the meeting. So our learners are having to do a lot to figure out the different platforms that they're using. And it goes back to that technology adoption thing, right? We're always trying to figure out, how do I use the technology in front of me? So we have to just count on people maybe not having all the resources that they need to be able to do this. Technology challenges, obviously, we've done a good job of demonstrating that. Engagement is another thing. I don't think we're having any problem with that today. I hear lots of questions coming out, which is great. And not being prepared as facilitators. So, you know, the confidence in being able to do this that somebody mentioned earlier, it comes with practice. That's all you can do is just practice, 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 practice. And hopefully we'll give you a lot of tips for how to feel a little bit more confident. So let's do this poll right now and see if the challenges that we are all feeling kind of resonate or align with the ones that Cindy talks about here. So Kirsten's gonna bring up a poll and we want you to share what your top challenges are.
And for those of you that are indicating other, if you don't mind, if you can put some of those in the chat box just so we can get an idea and capture what some of your challenges are. If they're not listed up there, that would be great as well. I'm seeing accessibility.
Shmuel, do you have the poll results up? Are you seeing it? Because I'm not seeing them.
Not yet. I don't think the poll has been closed yet.
Cool. Why don't we go ahead and close it and see what we've got then? Bureaucratic red tape and getting the tools you need. Totally get that.
Okay, so here are our results.
Okay, so engagement, good news. We have lots of tips about technology challenges. Bad news, there's really nothing to do about it, right? So I saw some stuff in the chat while I was gone about hardwiring in and using a hotspot. You know, and I think, again, the biggest thing is just understanding that it's going to happen, trying to take a deep breath. You know, I got a little heart palpitations going when that happened, coming back and just, you know, getting back on track with it. So any others? I see we've got 4% other.
Some of the others are accessibility for, you know, the person and others. We also see bureaucratic red tape for getting some of the resources or tools that's needed. Training for facilitators. Yes, that's something. Let's see. Technology challenges, last minute downloads, updates. I can share, I kind of had that little scare before we got started today. My computer decided it wanted to do an update. I'm like, no, not right now. And so I was hesitant, but I went ahead and it was a quick update because, you know, sometimes those Windows updates can take hours. So, you know, you can also set those for certain times to update on your computer. So think ahead and trying to plan ahead. Those are also some things. Time to learn and prepare. That's some other challenges people have indicated. High level stress that hamper the ability to participate and prepare on the part of the facilitator and the participant. So yes, even as Marty said before, you know, practice, practice, practice. Of course, you can't prepare for all the things that are going to happen, but if you have the basics down, I think that'll definitely help you kind of get through some of those other challenges that may pop up. And I think that's all we have in the chat box, Marty.
So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this producer role. So you'll see on this slide that only 27% of virtual trainers are using a producer. Kirsten is our producer today, and she plays a really important role. And I would not ever do any kind of training or even like important meeting facilitation without somebody in a producer role, because you can see what just happened. If I was responsible for running that poll, and I couldn't get in, what if Shmuel didn't have access to the polls either? I mean, we just need lots of redundancy built in, and that's what producers are all about. So give us a yes or no in the chat if you use a producer in your virtual training, somebody who's doing these things in the background for you, managing the pre-event stuff, helping with tech fails. I see some yeses, I see a couple no's. Or sometimes, not yet. Okay, good. Not enough staff. So I want to just challenge you to think about if there's anybody at all that you could help you to engage in this role. So maybe you don't have a co-facilitator. In that case, when I just had my tech fail, Kirsten would have had to jump in, and she has our slides, and she would have to totally wing it or do something else to keep you all engaged while I try to get back in. Facilitating the interaction on the platform, it is very difficult to follow your train of thought, to read the room, as someone said, and also to facilitate the polls, to just press all the buttons. We're doing a little bit of that today, and I'm running Mentor, but you know, that's as much as I would do. So having this person will really help you be able to concentrate on delivering the information that you want to. And the ever important role of just providing tech support. So anybody who's having a hard time getting connected to this meeting, you know, you saw when Kirsten was introducing herself, she was dealing with all that stuff in the background. I will tell you the number one role that the producer really makes me feel more confident about is this idea of tech fails. And we planned for that today. So we have several fail-safes in place. We all have a back channel group text so that we can talk. So as my audio was getting bad, I was getting messages from my colleagues and then all of you that was going wrong. We have redundant producer roles. So Ileana is on today in case something should happen and Kirsten can't do what she needs to do. And if you all lost connection to this meeting, we would have a plan in place to be able to help you get back in. You know, here's the link again. Please join us. We'll start as soon as, you know, everyone can join. Generally, the things I'm doing as part of a fail-safe involve, I already told you, having my notes in front of me. So if I lose a screen, I don't have to, you know, go from memory. And the headphones, which didn't work for me today. So this producer role can really be anybody. They don't have to have like super mad tech skills, but just be here and concentrate. So if you have a volunteer that you could engage in this role, I will say the youngest person you can find to engage in this role, also really helpful. There are some people that I would not ask to be a producer because they tend to be more phobic about technology. And I found that to be less true with my colleagues who are younger, who are just digital natives, as we say. So really think about who in your organization could do this. Chanel, what are people saying in the chat? What do we want to bring into this conversation?
So I think you've answered some of the, or provided some suggestions in regards to some of the comments in the chat. However, I know some people have indicated, you know, there's not always enough staff in order to have someone to be the producer, or they may not be as skilled to do the online training. And I've encountered that at times, but also with that producer role, I think there's a lot of, you know, information on the internet in terms of trying to navigate different platforms. And we're actually going to go over some of the different platforms later today. But definitely, and that person, as Marty said, doesn't necessarily have to be familiar with the content, but you can kind of practice and do some run-throughs with that person to kind of get them up to speed, because a lot of time, you know, if you're the only facilitator, you're going to be leading the process, but, you know, just letting them know, you know, to change the slides or to, you know, cue certain things. And if you practice that and do some run-throughs, hopefully that will help you if you don't have, you know, a specific co-facilitator or staff to jump in that role. But I think those dry runs are very important.
I see a question of whether you can hire a producer. I'm sure that you can. I have never done that, but I'm sure that's probably a service that a lot of the companies offer. We're going to talk about platforms, as Shamil said. I think to the extent that you can get comfortable with a platform and use that, then that will help. And there's a really good comment here about it can't just be anybody. And I'm sorry, I didn't actually mean to say that it could be anybody. What I'm trying to say is it doesn't have to be like your IT person. It has to be somebody who feels comfortable with technology. I think that is the most important thing. And then a close second is being able to be calm under pressure. So when everything kind of blows up and goes off the rails, then there's somebody there to calmly kind of work you through that. Let's talk a little bit about our own technology, or more about our technology. There's a question about, should the producer be the host? It depends on your platform. Usually, yes. There are some situations like this one where we have co-hosts, and that is when the importance of a dry run is figuring out how your tech works and what happens if someone is a presenter versus a host, what they can do, what they can't do. Shamil, you have a lot of experience on Zoom. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Correct, and I think you've answered that. So yes, I can speak to Zoom as an example since we're on that platform today. So as a host, there are certain features that the host has that the co-host doesn't have. And so I will give an example. As we were preparing today, we were able to do a dry run and kind of, finagle what some of those features are that our host, which is Kirsten today, and then Marty and I are serving as co-hosts. So we were able to identify through the dry run and kind of go through some of those things, how we're going to lay out things. And we even had some, challenges in the background with the poll. And so sometimes, as a co-host, I may have some features. I don't know how things get lost, but making sure that your host and co-host also know how to navigate it, because there could be times, as Marty shared, that maybe the host has some technical issues and it will automatically put the co-host as a host if the host was to log off. So your co-host should also know what the host capabilities are as well. So I would say that they should go hand in hand, just to prepare in those regards.
Thanks, Shamel. So a few things here about how you want to kind of run your tech. Use video whenever you can. So it is really hard to listen to a disembodied voice, especially for 2 hours. So that's why you're seeing us. We both have our camera about 2.5 feet in front of us. And we tested our audio. That didn't work so well, but we had a fail safe for that. The importance of that is, as soon as my audio got crackly, you all started chatting about that. And that's because it is impossible to listen to somebody when they're going in and out. It is so annoying to our brains. The sound of your voice is 2 times as important as what you say. So I could have been saying the most amazingly brilliant thing at that point, and it's lost. So that is really, really important. Probably the biggest thing that you need to be able to have a fail-safe around. I always like to stand up. You can see that Shamel is sitting. I feel much more like I'm in a room when I'm standing up. So that's why I do this. I might have to sit down after a while because I'll get tired. We talked a lot about practicing. What's not on this list? There's one thing that we left off. Do you know what it is? Tell us in the chat. Anybody have an idea? I'll give you a hint. Starts with an L. Lighting. Yeah, thanks. So you want to be front lit if at all possible. I have a window in front of me. I'm guessing Shamel probably has a light source in front of her. You want to avoid at all costs having being backlit, because you won't be able to be visible, and you want to avoid an overhead light that gives you like a halo or just shines down on you. So let's do a really quick activity. This is one that I stole from Cindy Huggett. I want you to think for a minute about Olympic athletes and what they do to prepare to compete in their sport. Type some ideas in the chat box of what Olympic athletes do to prepare. We're gonna just do this really quickly. So whatever comes to mind, just one word. Train, visualize success. Listen to music, nice. Eat well, eat and drink right, practice, condition. Take care of themselves, thank you.
I saw sleep.
Yeah. Good. So these are all the same things that we want you to think about when you're getting ready to do this. Facilitating, we all know facilitating is exhausting. Facilitating virtually, super exhausting, right? So you want to do all these things. You want to get as much practice as you can. You want to condition yourself so that you can deal with these kinds of things that come up like we've had today. You want to get some coaching if you can. That's one thing I'm not sure that I saw. But rest, I got a lot of sleep last night. I didn't the night before, so I went to bed so early it's embarrassing. Just so I could, feel at the top of my game today. So we're going to do another slide animation here. And I want you to think about 3 to 1. What Cindy says, and I really agree, and this is what Shamel and I have done, is that you should spend 3 times the time preparing as you do actually presenting. So I know it feels like a lot, but it's really important. So what's one thing that you all can do to prepare better? I want you to just think about that, write that down on a piece of paper, and stock that away so that you can have something that you're going to do for yourself to help yourself feel confident and feel successful the next time that you do this. So really quickly, and then we're going to finish out this section. I just wanted to touch on terms really quickly. So not all virtual facilitation is equal. And we tend to use a lot of these terms synonymously, and they're not. So a webcast is a big presentation. Lots and lots of people on Microsoft Teams. You can now do a webcast with 10,000 people. I'd like to get 10,000 people to come listen to me talk sometime. A webinar, less people, but usually in the hundreds. And with a webinar, you start to see a little bit of interaction. So, you know, some polls, maybe some chat. You might even have some people giving ideas verbally during a webinar. And then virtual training, even less people. My favorite number that I try not to go over is 25. If I have more than 25 people in a virtual training, I cannot attend to what needs to be done and work with everybody individually the way that I feel like I need to. And then a virtual meeting, which we saw in the video, could be 2 people, could be a ton of people, probably everybody interacting. So what are we doing today? What is this? Type in the chat. Are we a webcast, a webinar, a virtual training? I think we know we're not a virtual meeting because we all have pants on. Yep, webinar. Okay, you got that. So we're going to shift gears in a minute, but before we do that, I think you all have been asking questions as we go along. Anything kind of burning in your mind about the state of virtual training that you want to ask about? Okay, we're going to keep moving then. So I'm going to pass to Shamel, and we're going to talk about power skills for a while. We used to call them soft skills. I like to call them power skills.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some blueprints for engagement. So whether you're online or in person, learning usually falls under one of these 4 different areas. And so you want to be thinking about what your top priority is and finding the most efficient way to deliver the information that you're trying to share. So we're going to pull up a poll really quick. And Kirsten, do you have access to the poll, or do you need me to do it? And I want to find out, you know, which of these different engagement styles do you typically use or you plan to use virtually? Okay, there it goes. So do you plan to use more facilitation? Do you plan to do presentations, coaching, or consulting, or workshops? All right, I'll give it a couple more seconds. I see so far mostly people plan to do presentations. Okay, so it looks like about 38% of you want to do facilitation, a majority of you plan to do presentations or do presentations, and then about 16% does coaching and consulting, and then about 38% also will do workshops. So we're going to talk about this a little bit more and kind of break it down what each of these categories would look like or entail. Okay, so when we think about facilitation, that's usually where the facilitator's job is to open the discussion. You're going to welcome the participants. You're going to talk about the purpose of your meeting. You're going to provide some questions to kind of, you know, get the conversation going. You're really just trying to lead the way, but you still want your participants to engage. And so you're really trying to help provide some guidance to your participants, but you still want to have that engagement piece. As a facilitator, you shouldn't always necessarily take over the conversation, but be that guide or type of and try to lead that conversation. And then as you start to wrap your meeting or your presentation up, you want to definitely close out, summarize, provide some guidance for next steps in regards to future engagement. And then when we're thinking about presentations, that's where we're going to typically want to provide some type of knowledge-based information for our participants. So the presenter's job is to provide content and direction and instruction. So that's kind of what Marty and I are doing today. We're going to provide you some guidance and knowledge-based information so that you all can be even more effective in your virtual meetings or presentations or workshops. And so a lot of times in terms of presentations, they will take the form of a webinar, or it could be a virtual training as well. And then the next one is coaching and consulting. And this is where your participants are going to receive very individualized and intensive support on different practices, areas where they can build up on their skills, talk about different dilemmas, and also, you know, if they have any questions, you can also address those. It could be a combination of coaching and consulting. So where the coach provides reflective guidance, whereas with consulting, you're usually engaging with the participants where they're trying to seek some concrete advice or solutions or answers to particular questions. And then last but not least, workshops. And so even though most of us are used to doing these workshops in person, virtual workshops can also be very effective. However, it can be very challenging, and that's what we want to try to address some of those challenges so we can, you know, run as smoothly as possible. But workshops are designed to definitely teach new skills or techniques to your participants. But the key to achieving engagement in a virtual workshop is to design a process that is interactive and it's varied and tailored to your audience. So you should try to use tasks and techniques that exercise both creative and critical approaches, just as you would in an in-person setting. So I know that Marty indicated that she likes to do virtual trainings with 25 people or so. Research shows that with workshops, it's helpful to have about 50 participants or less, just so that you're able to engage with your participants where they can have their cameras on, or, you know, you're able to engage with them. It's also, as we've already shared with you, it's also helpful to have a co-facilitator when you're doing the workshops. However, when you do have a co-facilitator on a virtual platform, it can also get complicated as well. And so that's where that practice comes, you know, into play. It's very important to do that, because when you're in person and you have a co-facilitator, you usually have those physical cues where you're able to kind of feed off of each other's energy. However, on a virtual platform, it's very challenging to have those cues that you would normally have in an in-person setting. So it's very important, if you are going to have a co-facilitator, to set up some type of back channel. And so that back channel can be where you're communicating through your cell phones, by text message. I will just share a little secret. We have a back channel going right now. So we're able to text each other. So if someone, you know, their internet is down or they were kicked off of the Zoom platform, they're able to text us and say, hey, I was kicked off, I'm going to log back in. Or you can do that through email as well, but set up some form of a back channel, because that's going to be very important. I'll share an example, and we will be using some breakout rooms shortly, but I'll share an example where I had a co-facilitator and I was the host of that virtual training. And so we divided our participants up into breakout rooms. So as the host, I'm able to go in and out of the breakout rooms. However, I got stuck in one of the breakout rooms, and for whatever reason, I wasn't able to get out. So I say I was kind of caught in the matrix. So what I was able to do, I put myself on mute. I disabled my camera, so the people in the breakout room, they had no clue what was going on. And I was able to call my co-facilitator on my cell phone and say, hey, I'm stuck in this breakout room. I can't get out. We were able to kind of talk through it because I thought I was going to have to log off the platform. And if so, she was going to have to take over. But we were able to figure that out together on a cell phone. And what was great about it, the other participants had no clue what was going on in the background. So definitely setting that up will be very helpful for you in that regard.
Hey, Shamel, there's a great question in the chat that I wonder if you could answer.
Mm-hmm.
I was asking, are everyone's videos defaulted to off on purpose? Is that because of the size of this group? And what are your recommendations about how to use participant video?
So it actually depends on how the host has set up the Zoom account. So if you're using Zoom and other platforms, there are settings. So as the host, you can set up your platform in the different settings for that meeting. So sometimes it can be set where you can mute everyone as they join as well as have their cameras off, or you can do it vice versa. So whatever platform you're going to be using, and we'll talk about that a little later, look at the settings for that platform, and it'll give you some guidance and options on how you can set up that meeting in terms of joining.
I would say, just to add to that, with 100, where are we, 100, and we were at 109 a few minutes ago, that's a lot of video. So I would probably use the 25 rule and not have everyone join on video with more than that, because you want to use video as an engagement tactic. And if people can't really meaningfully make out who's talking and what they're saying, personally, I don't think it really helps. So in my mind, that is kind of a strategic decision. Yes, and I will also say, when you're interacting on a virtual platform, especially with a large group, as a facilitator, it's very stimulating because not only are you presenting and you have your screen in front of you, but you also have the chat box and other things going on. So when people have their cameras on and there's a lot of people, the movement in the background can be also distracting to you. So it depends on, each person is different, but yes, I agree with Marty. If it's more than, 25 people, you may want to just have it off so it's not as distracting to yourself as well as your participants. Okay, so next we're going to move over to the facilitation theory. And so I want you to list some qualities of a good facilitator that you've experienced in the chat box. So, when you're listing these qualities, did they help you understand something differently? What really stood out for you during that facilitation experience in regards to them being a great facilitator to you? So I see using real life experiences, being attentive, knowledgeable, easy to listen to, humor. Yes, I love humor. I find sometimes humor is challenging on a virtual platform because you don't get you can kind of see people laughing, but you don't always know if it went across well. So, but I still often try to use humor. Being fun and personable, storytelling, vocal variety. Okay. Yes. So thank you. So the basic premise of the facilitation theory is that learning will occur by the facilitator establishing an atmosphere in which participants feel comfortable to consider new ideas and they don't feel threatened, by external factors. So I see that a lot of you indicated in the chat box that your experiences with the good facilitators where you felt that, you were able to interact, they were caring, they were warm, they have personable skills. So that's definitely some key things to being an effective facilitator. And it's also about being authentic and, being yourself, being engaged, and also being warm, and also definitely respectful to your participants. On a virtual platform, the facilitator's role may also be to link what's going on in the chat box
to what your co-facilitator is stating, also what other participants are indicating. So there's a lot that's going on in regards to being a facilitator, but it's also important for the facilitator to acknowledge and accept that participants may have different views on certain topics. So we're not always going to agree on different things, and so that's okay. And a part of your role as a facilitator is being able to acknowledge and respect that in a manner where someone is not feeling offended in that regard. But it's also important to, be able to watch out for your other participants, because you don't want the others to feel, offended or disregarded in other ways as well. So it's very important, and it can be challenging at times, especially on a virtual platform, because you don't have those social cues and you're not able to always gauge what someone's mindset may be, when you're talking about different topics. And we're going to talk about that more when we talk about facilitating from a trauma-informed perspective as well. Next, we're going to go into learning styles. We're not going to spend a lot of time on different learning styles, but I'm just curious to find out what are your different types of learning styles. So there's a poll that'll be popping up shortly, but are you more of a kinesthetic learner, visual learner, auditory learner? What's your learning style? I see a lot of visual learners on the platform today. Okay, kinesthetic, some auditory. I'm gonna keep this up for about 2 more seconds and we're gonna end and show the results. So today, it looks like we have a majority of visual learners, and then we have some kinesthetic learners, and the least is auditory learners. And so that's going to be important to know. And sometimes you're not always going to know your audience, and so some of the adult learning principles, which we'll talk about next, you can do a quick assessment if you're preparing for a presentation, to just kind of find out, what your learning styles of your participants are going to be in advance, so that you can prepare for them. Because we know that our visual learners tend to like to read and write, their tasks, and they like to see charts and demonstrations or videos. And so we've tried to incorporate that today, because we understand that our participants will have all different types of learning styles. And then with our auditory learners, they tend to like to, talk. They might even move their lips or read out loud. These participants would definitely benefit from having short discussions in between content. So if you're able to do that, even doing the breakout rooms, which we're going to do, that's helpful for your auditory learners. And then for your kinesthetic learners, they definitely benefit from moving, touching, or doing things. So you might want to encourage them to take notes or even doodle as a form of active learning. When I facilitated in-person trainings, I would provide, adult coloring pages and different sensory or widgets on the tables for participants to kind of utilize when they were in the trainings. Now that we're doing virtual trainings, I definitely encourage my participants to doodle while we're on the virtual platform. I also tell them, I always keep, and I'm going to show you, I always keep some Play-Doh next to me. Even as a facilitator, it definitely helps, if you're nervous or anything as you're on there. But, having those things, especially if you're a kinesthetic learner, being able to move your fingers and just kind of keep it going, that definitely helps as you're trying to gain information and retain information. But definitely giving some tips to your participants on different ways that they can engage and retain the information. And while we may have different learning styles, research shows that 100% of learners benefit when they can process information in multiple forms. So as we continue through our presentation today, Marty and I will continue to demonstrate different ways for you to engage your participants based on their different learning styles. So that's the purpose of our presentation today. We just want to share different ideas with you on how to get that across.
Well, there's a question about, are there any online doodling programs that you can share during a training like this or a session?
There are some, and we have a handout that we'll be sharing with you with some different kind of brain teasers and icebreakers. And I know that one of those references on there that I shared was an online, I think it was like a coloring type of virtual coloring that you can do. So that will be on the handout, and the link to that website is on that handout. So you'll be able to get that as well. And then next we're going to go over the adult learning theory, and just by a raise of hands, how many of you are familiar with the adult learning theory? Okay, I see some hands. Okay. So that's something that we definitely want to incorporate when we're, engaging with our participants on a virtual platform. So you want to definitely think about the different types of adult learning styles. And so we want to make sure that, we're engaging them actively so that they can learn. So we want to think about, the experience that we're trying to get across to our adult learners. And we also want to make sure that we're focusing on, those top concepts so that their experience is worthwhile. So by engaging your participants, it helps them to really understand things a lot clearer, especially when they're a part of the experience versus us talking to them the whole time. So we want to include them as part of that discovery and exploration of the training or whatever type of meeting that you're trying to hold or host. And so as we think about adult learning principles, we want to make sure that the information we're sharing is relevant. We want to make sure that we're engaging them. We want to make sure that we incorporate active learning, and then also the content that we're sharing or the platform or the meeting that we're hosting, that is learner-centered. And so we're going to give you guys an opportunity to think about some of the ways that you can apply the adult learning principles, as well as ways that you can make sure that the information that you're sharing is relevant, engaged, active, and learner-centered. And so we're going to put you into breakout rooms, and we're going to ask, and you're going to be put into breakout rooms based on one of these different topics. So one of the 4 topics. So it's either going to be, you're going to be in a room to talk about relevancy, engagement, active, or learner-centered. And we want you to think about ways that you can make sure either your training, your virtual meeting, your webinar can encompass one of these different principles. And so I know Kirsten is going to put the breakout rooms up together. I know she has already assigned you all to a breakout room, and we're going to give you about 5 minutes to have this discussion, just to brainstorm ideas based on that assigned topic. And then when we come back as a large group, we're going to be able to use that Mentimeter app again, and you'll be able to share some of those thoughts or ideas that your group was able to come up with. So I'm going to repeat the instructions again, just in case you missed it. So we're going to put you all into breakout rooms, and you're going to be assigned to a specific topic. It may be relevancy, engagement, active, or a learner-centered. And you're going to just brainstorm some ideas on how you can incorporate that particular principle into either your webinar, virtual meetings, or virtual trainings, whatever you are going to host. And we're going to come back together in about 5 minutes, and you'll be able to share those ideas out on the Mentimeter platform. Are there any questions before we go into the breakout room?
I'm not seeing
Okay.
anything.
Okay. Kirsten, were you able to pull up the breakout rooms?
Kirsten, are you there?
I'm not sure if we're having technical issues. If so,
There you
you
go.
may.
Yeah, no, I'm here. It just took me a minute to find myself to unmute. So yeah, folks are going into the breakout rooms now.
Okay, great. And to go into your breakout room, you should see something pop up on your screen, and then you'll just click to join.
I think they're already gone because I got a direct message from somebody and she's not in this meeting anymore.
Okay.
Sorry,
Someone's saying that they're not getting in. I think Heidi.
Okay, Heidi, I'll find you and put you somewhere.
Okay. And Samantha, I think, as well, and then Heather.
And Charlotte and Nancy. Looks like we've got.
Yeah, I still see some people on the platform still. And Paula as well.
All right, hang on, not quite sure what's wrong because there's a lot of folks in them. So let me just kind of work through one person at a time to assign them. Thanks for your patience. It looks like a couple folks lost their connection and came back on too.
Yeah.
And let me just say,
unassign them.
Yeah, if you're waiting to get plopped into a breakout room, maybe think about these 4 areas and just jot down some notes on your own. And we'll have a chance for other people to chat in as we debrief. So. Looks like some people were in breakouts without people there or just one person.
Okay.
Yeah, about half the people who signed up didn't end up logging on and they were pre-assigned to break rooms. So there are some break rooms with outrooms with 2 people. I didn't see anyone with just 1. Seeing what I can do here. I don't know, as a co-host, Marty, if you are able to dive into any of those or not. Hang on.
Kirsten, it's Ileana. If you want to make me co-host, I can help you assign people.
Okay, great, thanks.
Actually, I think only the host will have access to the breakout rooms.
Ew.
Yeah, the co-hosts won't have access to that feature because even as the co-host, I don't even have access to it.
So maybe we should treat this as a mini breakout right now with the folks assigned.
Yeah, with the folks who are still here with us, I think that might be the best way to go. There's just so many folks, I'm not going to be able to assign them before they're done.
That's fine.
Yeah, folks that are still here, why don't you unmute yourselves and let's pick one. Shamil, which one should we be?
Let's talk about being learner-centered or engagement. Yeah, learner-centered.
Cool. What are your ideas? How can we be learner-centered in a virtual environment? Just unmute yourself and let's have a quick conversation.
I think my question would be a clearer definition of all, well, 3 of them at least. You know, because see, some to me seem to overlap, and I'm having a little trouble making those kinds of distinctions. So if you tell me something that's relevant, I know it means to talk about what's relevant to advocates may not be relevant to law enforcement. And so I'm kind of okay with that, but I don't understand what you mean by engaged, active, and learner-centered exactly. Could you help me with that?
Does anyone else have an idea of a way to be learner-centered in a virtual environment to kind of help Aurelia out in terms of this definition? I know Shamel can feed in, but any ideas that are coming up for people? You may need to unmute yourself.
I have something. This is Nikki with the Address Confidentiality Program. I typed it into the chat, but just the idea of asking people, participants ahead of time, or even at the beginning of your presentation, what type of learning style they prefer, I think is something that I wouldn't have even thought of, but that could greatly inform the way that you are doing your presentation and could make it more focused on tailoring it to the learner, you know, the specific learners you have in your presentation.
I love that.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think it would also be helpful maybe even to do a poll in the beginning of it. And you could have a couple of those ways of doing it that you could improvise depending on how many learners you have in which type of way, especially if you only have 10 people and they're 80% visual, then you could have a lot of visual slides. But if they're interactive, you can have a backup plan onto how to do it that way.
Yes.
You'd have to like plan for everything, right? But if
yeah,
that's awesome. I love that confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Who else has an idea?
I think I would say making sure you know your audience. So our agency mainly trains advocates, but also sometimes we have victims and survivors. And so making sure that you are aware of the audience in that sense.
Definitely. Yes. Yes, that's going to be, you know, definitely important, especially talking about certain topics. And so we'll talk about that more, definitely being trauma informed, but knowing your audience is going to be essential.
Any other ideas? Those are great ones.
And then I was going to say, Kirsten, we're going to do, if you can start to close out the breakout rooms just so that we can maximize time. Because it should give them a 60-second warning and then they'll come back automatically.
Yeah, that is at 55 seconds now.
Okay.
Cool. We've already got people posting up on Menti because I changed the slide. Facilitator error. Any other ideas in our last 45 seconds about how to be learner-centered in a virtual environment? Heather, we're just having a mini breakout right here for all the folks that never got assigned for some reason. So if you have any idea about how to be learner-centered, that's what we're focusing on.
This is Samantha here, and one of the things that we've done in the past is take short breaks that allow people to give feedback, sort of like the woman did before who said, you know, could you explain a little bit the definitions of these 4 different things. You know, if somebody's saying we're moving too fast, could you slow down a little bit? Or if a group of people are saying, you know, I missed a whole chunk of that content before, giving people opportunities for feedback on how the learning is working for them.
Yes, thank you.
I think also just encouraging questions, making them feel comfortable asking questions, like so they don't feel stupid about it, just making it easy for them.
Yes, definitely normalizing questions. And, you know, I always try to say there's no stupid question. So you know, when one person is thinking something, there's probably someone else in the room or on the platform that has the same question. Okay, do we have everyone back from the breakout rooms?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead. Welcome back, everyone, from the breakout room. So this is just a prime example. We had some technical challenges with getting everyone into a breakout room. So we do apologize if, you know, there were not a lot of people in your breakout room, how we set the platform up. If those who pre-registered for the training today, they were automatically assigned, but if they didn't log on, they wouldn't have shown up in there. But hopefully those of you that were able to get into the breakout rooms, you were able to share and brainstorm some different ideas. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Marty, and she's going to pull up Mentimeter, and she'll give you an opportunity to share some of your thoughts on what you were able to brainstorm in regards to the different topics of being relevant, engaged, active, or learner-centered in regards to the training or workshop that you're planning to present.
So Shamel, it's Kirsten. Hang on just a moment. I got a message from Marty that she's having a little trouble sharing screen. So let me see if I can help there. And if you want to maybe have folks start talking on what they learned or whatnot.
Okay.
So I won't be able to share it on screen right now, but you all can go to menti.com, and I am going to post the code. If you missed it last time, you'll go to menti.com and then you'll enter this code, and then you will be able to start seeing it. You'll be able to answer the first question, and when I can get screen sharing ability, we'll put it back up on the screen, but you'll be able to see it there as well.
Okay, great.
Maybe we could just do this without sight for right now.
Okay. Yes, if they can go ahead and post that, and it should be in the chat box for you all to see.
Barbara, you should be back from the breakout. And I just opened voting. Thank you. So you should see what are some ways to make virtual sessions relevant. And I see 2 things posted. Make sure your knowledge is current and applicable, and ask the audience what they're most interested in learning. Anybody else? One, relevant. Assess the audience need. Use as many engagement strategies as possible. Use surveys. Bring in pop culture references. Know your audience. This person works with youth. Survey attendees before. Track emerging trends and events and know your audience. Teach around a recent case, like a case study in the community. That's a great, great idea. Let's move to the next one just for the sake of time. I'm going to close voting, and let's go to what are some ways to make virtual sessions engaged. Go ahead and post up if you were talking in a group about engagement. What are some tips that you have discovered? I see make it interactive. The holy grail of engagement. Polls and Mentimeter. Polls, 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 use animated clips, small group discussions, changing the layout, asking questions. They use Jamboard, polls and videos. Somebody type in the chat what Jamboard is. I need to know about that. Using video and audio in breakout groups, asking people for going around the room and asking for one-word answers so everyone has a chance to contribute, right? Calling people by name, asking an opinion. Have people change their name in response to questions. I've never used that one. That's a great idea. Breakouts, changing the platform that you're using humor. Those are all really good. And Sarah's given us some information about Jamboard. Ah, it's a whiteboard. I use Mural, Sarah. It's a great tool.
Okay. And just so you know, Samantha, the responses aren't on the screen. Marty was having some challenges with sharing her screen, so she's just reading the responses as you all enter them into Mentimeter. And I'm not sure, it looks like Marty may be frozen. Okay, there you are. And you're on mute, Marty.
Thank you. How about votes for learner-centered? I don't see any yet. Oh, I lost my chat while I was gone. Did you see anything, Shmel?
No, I do not see anything in the chat box.
Okay.
No.
Oh, here we go. Survey or poll before to learn more about needs and learning style. We had to improvise because we had people that didn't make it into breakout rooms, so we went off mute and just had a mini session. I show learner-centered as up for vote. Let me do it again. How about that? Now you should see it. Ideas for being learner-centered. Can people see that poll open? Okay, here we go. When people type in the chat, say their name. So connecting with them, analyzing the audience and anticipating barriers, using other ways to respond to questions. So thumbs up, video on off, chat unmute, using a variety of interaction techniques, slowing down because sometimes the tech takes a while. So that was one thing that I did. I didn't wait long enough for questions last time. And
Looks like Marty's frozen. Hang on for
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Yeah, Shamel, do you want to move forward?
Yeah, okay. There you go, Marty. You were frozen for a minute.
okay, I might lose my connection again. I don't know what's happening here today.
Okay. Were we able to finish up the learner-centered responses that you received on Mentimeter?
Yeah, we get those. You guys should see active open. Let's move to active. Gretchen, thank you. I'm more than ever. I don't know what's happening. Any ideas for active? I don't see anything on the board yet.
Okay, Caroline, we will see if we are able to share those results with you. I'll work with Marty and we'll make sure we'll see if we can get those to Kirsten to email out to you so that you all are able to see the ideas and the different brainstorming ideas that you all were able to come up with, because I'm interested to see them as well. So we apologize for the technical challenges with that.
So I'm back. We've got lots of breakout rooms, on-screen answers, making people physically raise their hands, so using video. I think there's a question here about what's the difference between active and engaged, and I'm not sure there is a huge difference, but Shamel, let's go through some of these and maybe you can speak to that. Having people stand up, show their pets, show their view, their background. Demonstrate some kind of movement. I like to do some yoga poses, help people get oxygen flowing who are sitting for so long these days, what their experience is, using music. Yeah, so Shamel, how would you describe the difference between active and engaged?
So just kind of some of the examples that you gave, but I think they can overlap in regards to that. So you know, with active learning, it's definitely, you know, engaging your participants and asking them questions and, you know, keeping them as a part of the learning process. It's not just the facilitator or the presenter talking to them the whole time, but you know, kind of like what we've been doing on the platform is asking you questions, because even though the presenter may be the, you know, the expert at the time, also the participants also have information from their experience that they can also share so that we can all learn from one another. As a presenter, I always try to learn something from the participants, even though I may be, you know, set up as the subject matter expert, but we can all learn from one another in that regards. And so definitely engaging will be, you know, using the different functions on your virtual platform. So the chat box, the polls, the breakout rooms, but also, you know, we'll talk about doing some deep breathing, doing some exercises, doing some brain teasers. That just keeps everything flowing, because we don't have the capacity as we used to when we were in person to kind of network with each other. So we have to be creative in doing that.
Great. So with all these technical glitches, we're running a little behind. And since you all are so interested in being trauma-informed virtually, I want to make sure we get there. So I'd like to suggest we just go through the next slide super fast and then skip the break. Sorry, everyone, we did have that planned because best practice. And then get to trauma-informed, because I think that's so important. Does that sound good to you, Shamel?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, cool. So we just stuck this slide in here about retention. And we know from research that people forget 75% of what they learn within 24 hours. So if you're training, if you're actually trying to build capacity, impart skills, it's really important that you think about retention. So obviously this isn't a training forum today, but just to throw these ideas out, make sure that you build in practice and give people some feedback. So that idea of coaching and having people try something and see how it goes. Trying methods that are memorable. So a lot of the things that you guys shared around active and engaged, just making sure that people are using their full brains and all their senses that Shamel talked about so that they can retain the knowledge that you're imparting. And then this idea of 4 seconds. We've tried really hard today to shift something up every 4 seconds. We've asked you a question, we showed a video, we had a poll, there was a chat, so something to just get people moving, and that's what helps us kind of get the information into our brain. And we won't do a long neuroscience lecture because it's more important that we talk about trauma-informed.
So yes, so we're going to move into trauma-informed facilitation because that's definitely something that we want to incorporate, especially when we're interacting with people from a virtual platform. And so by a raise of hands, please raise your hand if you currently incorporate trauma-informed practices in your meetings or your trainings or your workshops. Okay. So I do see some people are currently incorporating those. And if you don't mind, I would ask if you can share some of the practices that you're currently incorporating in your meetings or trainings at this time that you are doing that's trauma-informed, just to give others some ideas of what you're currently doing. And as you're typing some of the ways that you're doing them, I'm just gonna go over 6 different principles or practices that you can incorporate into being a trauma-informed virtual facilitator. And so the first one is definitely prioritizing your participants' regulation. And so trauma-informed principles or values are designed to ensure that everyone's safety and well-being and optimal ability to engage and reflect in the learning process is a part of that meeting or training or platform. So the trauma-informed principles such as safety and transparency, peer support, empowerment, and cultural humility can and should inform guidelines for presenters and for content creators. So virtual learning spaces can really heighten vulnerability And so no matter what the content is, people are in, uncontained spaces. We're definitely dealing with uncertain times. So you never always can be matter of fact in regards to, what may trigger someone in regards to what they're hearing or what they may be seeing during that meeting or discussion. And so as a facilitator, you definitely want to be knowledgeable and acknowledge that, because it can be very challenging to identify if someone has been triggered, on a virtual platform, because we're not able to see those different virtual cues, or, like we were in person, we're not able to see based on facial expressions or body movements if someone has been triggered or if they're feeling uncomfortable. So definitely offering moments of quiet time, moments of deep breathing or regulation in a virtual learning space, that can be very helpful. It's also a great way to help participants shift their brains into learning zones, especially if you're discussing emotionally charged topics. I know we weren't able to do that today, and that's based on the sake of time, but it's also important to allow bio breaks. So depending on the length of your scheduled meeting or training, take breaks to allow your participants just to stretch, get water, if they need to check a message or respond to an email or, a phone call. And also just have a break from the screen, just to, incorporate some type of self-care tactics. I will say we had incorporated a break for you all today, but we definitely want to maximize our time with you. Another practice in regards to trauma-informed facilitation is to offer activation warnings as needed. And so this can be done at the beginning of your training or meeting. So if you know you're going to be discussing an emotionally charged topic, inform participants in advance. So this will give them the option to opt out or maybe step away for a certain time frame and return later. If you're going to share visuals that can be triggering, inform the participants so that they know. So for example, I do a workshop on the prevention of sexual abuse. I do it usually for a smaller group of people at a time, so no more than like 20 or 25, just so that we can have discussion. But I definitely try to normalize the experience of the information, that it can be emotionally charged, so that, I don't want participants to feel a certain way if they have to disable their cameras during the workshop. So I usually just allow people to disable their cameras so no one feels a certain way if they are feeling a certain type of emotion and they do need to disable it. So if everyone's camera is disabled, during that workshop, it kind of normalizes that. And if they want to turn it on, they can. And so those are different ways that you can do that. If you don't mind, in the chat box, list some ways that you have provided warnings to your participants if you knew you were going to be discussing some emotionally charged topics.
Well, there have been a lot of comments about that in general, using trigger warning, explicitly, making sure to do the kind of expectation setting, providing a roadmap, which is letting people know, providing the crisis line if someone is triggered, giving options for people to step aside and engage privately. But a lot of the same things that you've been saying have been coming up as well.
Well, good. And I also want to say, I know that a lot of times we're also thinking about topics that may be centered around victimization, but I also want to say, or just share, that being trauma-informed can also be topics, in regards to the function of an organization. I know that, with everything going on with this pandemic, there have been, some companies that have had to lay off some of their employees, or they may have experienced, the loss of some of their employees, by death. And so even during those times, it's even important to make sure that you're trauma-informed when you're definitely discussing some of those emotionally charged topics, such as, if someone has to lose their job, or, if they've lost a coworker. So definitely keeping those things in mind as well. And then the next practice that I want to share is calibrated reciprocity. And so it's a key component to storytelling. And so being able to name your emotions and being, explicit about that. So even as a facilitator, showing some type of vulnerability. So it may be, I'm feeling stressed and confused, or, I'm not really sure how to answer that at this time. So this shows an example to your participants because you're modeling that it's healthy and, it's a normal experience, and you're able to articulate and process your emotions amongst your peers, especially during difficult times. And so, even in the work that I do on a daily basis, I have, some of the volunteers or participants that I support, and they're asking, well, how are we going to do this and how we're going to do that? And just simply letting them know, at this time, I really don't know how we're going to address that situation, but that's something that we're working on. However, once we have that information, I will make sure that we provide communication or follow up with you in regards to that. And so, it's definitely important. Or, sometime as a facilitator, I may get questions about something, and that just may not be my expertise. And so I have to, let them know, hey, that's not an area that I'm an expert in, or I know a lot. Let me do some research, or let me try to connect you with someone who can better give you that information. And so, being able to be vulnerable during that time is, it's also being your authentic self. And so if you're in a leadership role, the more that you can display or model calibrated reciprocity to your team members, that's going to definitely encourage them to be able to, feel safe, and also be able to share their feelings and emotions with you as their leader in those roles. And so if you can, in the chat box, share some ways that you are able to model any type of calibrated reciprocity in terms of, even with your team or even as a facilitator, because those type of things are going to come up during your time, especially on a virtual platform.
As usual, everyone's going right along with you. So Dana talked about just letting people, making sure to show vulnerability with containment to help people know that that's okay, along with all the other things that you talked about.
Okay.
I don't see any other ideas specifically about that yet. People may be typing, using plain language. And Gretchen's saying it's a great tool and really hard to incorporate because terminology as professionals that we use makes people feel disconnected. That's such a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Doing check-ins and starting check-ins with an honest assessment of where I'm at is what Nikki's sharing. And having mentors available to the students from victim serving organizations who can help with issues, in case people are getting activated.
Yes, and I really like the comment about, even sharing when you're feeling some type of way. There's been times when I facilitated a training on a heavy or emotionally charged topic, and I just, it's kind of heavy on me, and I will share that with my participants, like, this topic is really heavy. And so sometimes what I'll do even on my PowerPoint screens is when it's a emotionally charged topics, I have a little icon on my PowerPoint slide of lungs. And that's just a reminder to my participants to breathe, because sometimes we have to breathe through certain situations or topics. And so just having that little icon on those PowerPoint slides, and then I'll even also verbally say, let's breathe through this together. And so that's very helpful as well. The next area I want to talk about, or next practice, is virtual hallways. And there's different ways that you can incorporate virtual hallways. I did see someone comment that they had a participant, in one of their meetings or trainings that was crying, and, what are some suggestions on how to address that? So these virtual hallways definitely can be a way to do that. So you can kind of set up a virtual waiting room, and that's an area where, your participants who have been triggered or they need some additional support, they can either private message the facilitator, hey, I'm really feel in a certain type of way. And then you can have it already set up and you can announce this at the beginning. And if you have a co-facilitator or a co-facilitation team, you can already have someone identified that can go and to meet that participant in that virtual room or waiting room, and they can kind of process together in that regard so that you're able to provide them some type of support. This also works with technical support as well. So if you have a participant who is experiencing technical support, you can also have, you know, a co-facilitation team member go to that waiting room and kind of walk through some things with them as well. And then the second way of using a virtual hallway would be more of an unstructured way to connect with each other. So a lot of times the feedback I get from participants is, you know, on the virtual platform, we're not able to, you know, network and connect with each other because we're all on the screen. So you can also set up virtual hallways for people, you know, during breaks, and they can kind of log into different breakout rooms, and they're able to just have small talk like we would do if we took a break in an in-person training, you know, going to the restroom and you're able to connect with people or during your break. So those are just different ways on how you can utilize the virtual hallways in that regard. And then the next one is consistent routine. And so we also want to recognize that countless trauma studies suggest that establishing a sense of routine really helps people maintain or regain a sense of control. So we want to provide some type of structure to our meetings and training. So an example is we provided you all with an agenda of the topics we're going to discuss. We try to let your participants know what's going to be covered, what's going to be happening, you know, if we have a break coming up, and then after the break, you know, go over what you're going to cover the last part of your training. So those are definitely helpful tips. And then the last one I want to focus on is practicing cultural humility. And that's being aware that there are different layers of trauma and everyone has a different walk of life. And so as a facilitator, it's important for you to be aware of your own personal biases. And so you definitely want to be respectful of different cultures and diverse communities. So we want to incorporate terms that support cultural humility, equity, and definitely trying to eliminate disparities when you're delivering information or interacting with your participants. So those are some quick tips. I'm sorry we had to kind of push through that in terms of trauma-informed virtual facilitation. But if you all have any questions on this or want to get some more insight or share your ideas, definitely do that in the chat box. I just definitely want to make sure, because I know we're running out of time. But
you're getting some thank you for bringing it up and associating the trauma around, you know, how people may be coming to the session. And Dana was saying that they taught the week after George Floyd was murdered, and it had to be addressed. You know, it's in the room. And
yes, I also had to do a training, and it was actually about disparities and disproportionality, and it was the week after that. And so I had to definitely exhibit or model that calibrated reciprocity and let my participants know that, you know, my heart is definitely heavy at this time as we have this discussion. And I think that brought, you know, me being vulnerable with them, that brought around some great discussion with my participants for that session. And I think people felt more comfortable discussing the topic, because sometimes it's easy to skirt around that. The next slide we want to go over, and I think Marty may have already uploaded the handout, but just wanted to give you all some tools that you'll be able to take back in regard to some different icebreakers and energizers and ways to engage your participants. But some of the things we've been trying to model for you today is, you know, the first little icon or picture that you see is behind the curtain. A lot of things go on behind the curtain. So even when you're on a virtual platform, because you're not in person, it's going to be important that you communicate with your participants of what's going on. So I know it can be really annoying, kind of talking through what you're doing. So if you're facilitating, you're like, okay, I'm going to share my screen, or I'm going to pull up the poll, or I'm going to do this. That's important, so there's not that awkward silence, because you have to remember they're not in the room with you. And so when we were in person, they can see you kind of reviewing your notes, or, you know, looking at the time, or consulting with your co-facilitator, but they're not able to see that on a virtual platform. And then also it's important to repeat instructions. And so, you know, be very detailed, repeat instructions for activities, just so you make sure that everyone was able to gather that information. And then the next one is, if you're able to, you can put timers on your slides, especially if you're going to do like different group activities or you're going on a break. That can give a visual to people to let them know how much time you have. And then Marty already talked about, in facilitation, you can stand up or sit down, whatever is comfortable for you. Taking a break is definitely important, as we already stated. And then it's also helpful when you come back from a break. What I like to do is incorporate it like an icebreaker or a brain teaser or something, just to kind of, you know, get everyone refreshed and back into the groove of information. Playing music is also a good technique. I usually like to play music, you know, before I start a training, during breaks. I just think music is calming. And then make sure you take a deep breath. Using progressive muscle relaxation, those are some techniques. And then if you're going to record the training or a meeting that you're on, make sure you announce that to your participants, because, and that's also a part of being trauma informed, because that can also let someone, you know, determine if they want to share certain things, because, you know, if it's recorded, they may not want that to be recorded. And then last but not least, which we're not probably doing a good practice today, but at the end of your training, allow time, you know, if you can, 15 to 20 minutes for questions. But we have incorporated questions throughout the time today.
So we're actually at time, but the good news is that the next slides, will send you out the slides with the handouts. I can see in the chat that some of you can't find them in the chat, so I'm not sure what's happening there. But we'll send you the slides, and the handout has all the engagement tricks, which is what we were going to wrap up with. So you will be able to grab those by email afterward. I also posted in the chat, if you have any questions that like you really want to talk through, post those in the chat before you log out, and Chanel and I will try and find a way to connect back, you know, with some thoughts about those things. And we're at time, and I think that Kirsten has some stuff she'd like to share about how to get your certificate and things like that. So Kirsten, can we turn it over to you?
And I've just uploaded all of the handouts just in case you missed them in the chat box or they got lost. So hopefully you'll be able to download. There are 4 different handouts, so I have uploaded those again for you.
Thank you. I see the certificate there too.
Yeah, the hard thing with, there's so much in chat that stuff kind of winds up at the top. So thank you so much, Shamel and Marty, that was great. I put my email in the chat. Some folks are asking, you know, if you've got things that you couldn't get. And I'll be sending a follow-up email to folks with your eval. I know that that will help Shamel and Marty quite a bit. So I just want to say thank you so much to all of you. Thank you to our presenters. The tech stuff, it does kind of just happen. You know, it's kind of more how you deal with it, I think. So I wish everyone the best in your online training, as well as to have a wonderful and safe week and holiday season. And we'll see you the next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.